Chapter 1. The party that changed everything. Gary Ross adjusted the cuffs of his navy blazer, watching Monica in the mirror as she applied a final swipe of lipstick. She looked stunning, sleek black dress, hair cascading in soft waves, the kind of effortless elegance that had always made him proud to stand beside her. Tonight was her company's New Year's party, and he was determined to make it a good evening, even if the last few months had felt off. "You ready?" he asked lightly, grabbing his keys from the dresser. Monica glanced at him, her smile bright but not quite reaching her eyes. "Almost. Just need to grab my clutch." Gary nodded, ignoring the faint tug in his chest. He'd felt that disconnect for weeks now, like a hairline crack in glass, barely visible but spreading. He told himself it was work stress. Her promotion to department manager had been huge, and he'd been proud, genuinely proud. But pride didn't erase the late nights, the missed dinners, the way her laughter seemed reserved for someone else lately. On the drive to the hotel, Monica was chatty, animated even. She talked about the new project her team was handling, the pressure, the excitement. Gary listened, smiled in the right places, and tried to ignore the nagging thought that her enthusiasm wasn't for him anymore. The ballroom was buzzing when they arrived. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, the hum of conversation layered over soft jazz. Monica slipped her arm through his as they walked in, and for a moment, Gary felt reassured. This was fine. They were fine. Then came the introductions. "Monica," a tall man in a tailored suit approached, grinning. "Glad you made it. Daniel." Monica beamed, squeezing his arm before turning to Gary. "This is Gary, my roommate." Gary blinked. "Roommate?" Daniel's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before he recovered. "Oh cool. Nice to meet you, man." Gary shook his hand, his own smile polite, controlled. Inside, something cold settled in his gut. Roommate. Not boyfriend. Not partner. Not even friend. Roommate. The next hour was a blur of similar introductions. Monica laughed with her coworkers, leaned in close to share jokes, her hand occasionally brushing someone's arm. Gary stood at her side like a piece of furniture until she drifted away entirely, swallowed by a circle of colleagues. He ended up at a table near the back, nursing a whiskey and watching the ice melt. He checked his watch. Almost 2 hours since she'd last spoken to him. The realization hit with brutal clarity. She didn't want him here, and after calling him her roommate, Gary knew exactly where he stood. He didn't storm out. That wasn't his style. When Gary was angry, he didn't shout or break things. He got quiet, focused. So he sat there, sipping his drink, planning. Not revenge. He wasn't interested in chaos. Just an exit. Clean, simple, final. When Monica finally returned, flushed and glowing from laughter, she chirped, "Ready to go?" Gary rose without a word, helped her into her coat, and walked her to the car. The drive home was filled with her chatter about how amazing the night had been, how everyone loved her dress, how the VP hinted at bigger things in the new year. Gary gripped the steering wheel, his silence heavy but unnoticed. For the first time since he met her, he didn't see a future. He didn't see anything. 3 years, gone, wasted, and he wasn't interested in why. He didn't need excuses to recognize disrespect when it slapped him in the face. Actions spoke louder than words, and tonight, Monica had screamed the truth without saying a thing. By the time they pulled into the driveway, Gary had made up his mind. He was done. Chapter 2. The morning after, Gary woke to the faint hum of Monica's hairdryer and the smell of coffee drifting down the hall. For a moment, he lay still, staring at the ceiling, letting the quiet clarity of last night settle deeper into his bones. He wasn't angry anymore, not in the explosive sense. Anger had burned off, leaving something sharper, colder. Resolve. He swung his legs out of bed, padded to the kitchen, and found Monica humming as she poured coffee into 2 mugs. She looked radiant in the morning light, her silk robe cinched at the waist, hair bouncing as she moved. If he didn't know better, he'd think everything was perfect. "Morning," she chirped, sliding a mug toward him. "You were so quiet last night. Tired." Gary accepted the coffee, his expression neutral. "Something like that." Monica laughed lightly, oblivious. "The party was amazing, wasn't it? Everyone loved you." Gary raised an eyebrow. "Loved me? You introduced me as your roommate." The words landed like a stone in a still pond. Monica froze, her smile faltering. "What? No, She blinked rapidly, searching for a lifeline. "I didn't mean, Gary, it was just what?" His tone was calm, almost gentle, but his eyes held hers without flinching. "A slip? Because you said it more than once." Monica's throat worked as she swallowed. I didn't think." "That's the problem," Gary said quietly, setting his mug down. "You didn't think." The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Monica opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "Gary, you know that's not how I see you. You're everything to me." Gary studied her, noting the panic flickering behind her eyes. Maybe she believed that, maybe she didn't. Either way, last night had spoken louder than any words she could string together now. "I'm moving out," he said simply. Monica's breath hitched. What? No. No, Gary, please. Don't do this. It was a stupid mistake. Gary shook his head. It wasn't a mistake. It was a message. I heard it loud and clear. She stepped closer, gripping his arm. Gary, I love you. I've just been distracted. The promotion, the pressure. I've been a mess, but I can fix this. Gary met her gaze, steady and unyielding. Respect isn't optional, Monica. You don't get to call me your roommate and then tell me you love me. That's not how this works. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but Gary felt nothing but a dull ache. He'd spent 3 years building something he thought was solid, only to watch it crumble under the weight of indifference. He wasn't going to beg for scraps of dignity. I'll start looking for a place today, he said, turning toward the bedroom. I'll be out by the end of the week. Behind him, Monica's voice cracked. Gary, please. Don't walk away. He paused at the doorway, his back to her. I'm not walking away, Monica. You pushed me out. And with that, he closed the door, leaving her standing in the kitchen, clutching a mug that had gone cold. Chapter 3. Monica's wake-up call. Monica sat at the kitchen table long after Gary closed the bedroom door, staring at the untouched coffee in her hands. The silence in the apartment felt heavier than any argument they'd ever had. Gary wasn't yelling, wasn't slamming doors. He was calm, too calm, and that terrified her. She replayed the night in her head like a bad movie. The party, the laughter, the introductions. Roommate. God. She'd said it without thinking, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Why? Because she wanted to fit in? Because she was afraid her coworkers would see her as less professional if she flaunted her relationship? The excuses sounded pathetic even in her own mind. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. Jenna. How was the party? Did Gary survive the corporate sharks? Monica stared at the screen, her throat tightening. Survive? He barely spoke. He barely looked at her. And now he was leaving. She typed back, fingers trembling. It was fine. Then deleted it. Typed again. I think I screwed up. Jenna's reply came fast. What happened? Monica hesitated, then sent the truth. I introduced him as my roommate. The 3 dots blinked for a long time before Jenna's response appeared. Monica. What the hell? Monica winced. She could practically hear her sister's voice through the text, sharp and incredulous. I didn't mean it like that, she typed. Then what did you mean? Jenna shot back. Monica stared at the screen, unable to answer. Because deep down, she knew what it meant. She'd been so wrapped up in her new role, so desperate to impress, that she'd shoved Gary into the shadows. The man who had been her anchor for 3 years, her safe place, her biggest cheerleader, and she treated him like an afterthought. Her chest tightened as memories flooded in. Gary cooking her favorite pasta after her first big presentation. Gary rubbing her shoulders when she cried over a missed deadline. Gary listening, always listening, when she vented about office politics. And what had she given him in return? Excuses, dismissals, a cold shoulder wrapped in, I'm just busy. Monica pushed back from the table, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. She couldn't lose him. She wouldn't. But how do you fix something when the foundation is cracked? When the person you love looks at you like a stranger? She grabbed her phone and dialed Jenna. The moment her sister answered, Monica blurted, He's moving out. Jenna's gasp was audible. Monica, what did you do? I told you. I introduced him as my roommate. He's furious. No, worse, he's calm. He said respect isn't optional and he's leaving. Jenna groaned. Well, he's not wrong. Monica sank onto the couch, clutching a throw pillow like it could hold her together. I didn't mean it. I love him, Jenna. I've been so focused on work. And you forgot the man who's been there for you every step of the way. Jenna finished bluntly. Monica, you need to fix this. Not with flowers or some cheesy apology. You need to show him you respect him. That you value him. Monica closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. What if it's too late? Then you fight like hell, Jenna said. Because if you let him walk out without trying, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Monica hung up and stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. She had no idea how to fight for Gary, how to undo the damage. But she knew one thing. She wasn't going down without a battle. Chapter 4. The break begins. Gary moved through the apartment with quiet efficiency, pulling a suitcase from the closet and laying it open on the bed. The rhythmic sound of hangers sliding across the rod filled the room, oddly soothing. He wasn't rushing. He never rushed. But every fold, every neatly stacked shirt was a step toward freedom. Monica hovered in the doorway, her robe replaced by jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back like she was ready for battle. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. Almost. Gary, can we talk? He didn't look up. We already did. That wasn't a conversation, she said, stepping closer. That was you announcing you're leaving. Gary folded another shirt, placed it in the suitcase. Because that's what's happening. Monica's breath hitched. You're really doing this? Over one stupid mistake. Gary paused, finally meeting her gaze. Monica, this isn't about one night. It's about a pattern. You've been drifting for months. I tried to talk to you. You brushed me off. Last night just confirmed what I already knew. Her hands clenched at her sides. I didn't mean it like that. I was nervous, trying to fit in. By erasing me, his tone was calm, but the words cut sharp. You didn't just forget me, Monica. You made me invisible. She flinched, tears spilling over. I love you. I swear I do. Gary zipped the suitcase halfway, his expression unreadable. Love without respect isn't love. It's convenience. Monica's knees felt weak, but she forced herself forward, grabbing his arm. Please, Gary, don't do this. Let me fix it. He gently removed her hand, his touch soft but final. You can't fix something you don't see. And last night, you showed me exactly where I stand. Monica's voice cracked. I was wrong. I know that now. I'll do better. I'll prove it. Gary shook his head. I'm not interested in promises. I'm interested in actions. And right now, my action is leaving. The suitcase clicked shut, the sound echoing like a gavel. Gary lifted it off the bed, his movements steady, deliberate. Monica followed him to the door, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. Gary, please, she whispered, her voice breaking. Don't walk out on us. He turned, meeting her gaze one last time. I'm not walking out on us, Monica. You already did. And then he was gone, the door closing with a soft thud that felt louder than any slam. Monica stood frozen in the empty apartment, the silence pressing down like a weight. For the first time in 3 years, she realized what life without Gary sounded like, and it was deafening. Chapter 5. Friends and Confidants. Gary's new apartment smelled faintly of fresh paint and cardboard boxes. He'd signed the lease that morning, and now he stood in the middle of the living room, hands on his hips, surveying the blank canvas of his new life. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom with creaky floors and a view of the parking lot. But it was his. No shadows of broken promises here. His phone buzzed. Ethan. Gary answered, bracing himself. Hey. Hey, man. Ethan's voice boomed through the speaker, full of the kind of energy Gary couldn't muster. So, you finally did it? Gary dropped onto the couch. A lumpy hand-me-down from Ethan himself. Yeah. Damn. A pause? Then, you okay? Gary stared at the ceiling. Define okay. Ethan snorted. Not crying into a pint of ice cream while watching rom-coms? Gary smirked despite himself. Not yet. Good. Because if you start quoting Love Actually, I'm staging an intervention. Gary chuckled, the sound surprising him. Leave it to Ethan to drag humor into the wreckage. I'm fine. Really. It was time. Still sucks, Ethan said, softer now. 3 years is a long time. Gary's jaw tightened. Yeah. Long enough to know when respect's gone. Ethan whistled low. She really called you her roommate? Gary's silence was answer enough. Wow. Ethan let out a laugh that was half disbelief, half sympathy. Man, that's cold. You should have introduced her as your landlord. Gary laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in days. Missed opportunity. Don't worry, Ethan said. We'll brainstorm revenge nicknames later. For now, you need essentials. Beer, pizza, and a TV big enough to make you forget you're single. Gary shook his head, smiling faintly. I'm not looking for distractions. Fine, Ethan said. But I'm still bringing pizza. And beer. And maybe a plant so you don't die alone in a sterile box. Gary rolled his eyes. Thanks, Mom. Anytime, Ethan quipped. Hang in there, man. When the call ended, Gary felt lighter. Not fixed, but less broken. Maybe humor was its own kind of glue. Across town, Monica sat cross-legged on Jenna's couch, clutching a throw pillow like it was a life raft. Her sister eyed her with the kind of bluntness Monica both loved and dreaded. So, Jenna said, sipping her coffee, you introduced him as your roommate. Monica groaned. Don't say it like that. How else should I say it? You basically demoted your boyfriend to Craigslist status. Monica buried her face in the pillow. I didn't mean it. Intent doesn't erase impact, Jenna said. You hurt him. Bad. Monica peeked out, eyes red. He's moving out. Jenna's brows shot up. Wow. No hesitation. None, Monica whispered. He said respect isn't optional. Jenna nodded slowly. He's right. Monica's throat tightened. I love him, Jenna. I lost myself in work. I thought I was doing it for us. And in the process, you forgot us includes him, Jenna said. Look, you can't fix this with flowers or some cheesy playlist. You need to show him you value him. Actions, not words. Monica swallowed hard. What if he won't let me? Then you fight like hell, Jenna said, her tone fierce. Because if you let him walk away without trying, you'll regret it forever. Monica nodded, determination sparking through the fog of guilt. She didn't know how yet, but she was going to fight. And maybe, just maybe, she'd win him back. Chapter 6. The apartment divide. Gary had always prided himself on being organized, but packing up 3 years of shared life was like dismantling a museum exhibit. Every item a relic of something that used to matter. He crouched by the bookshelf, sliding his favorite novels into a box, when Monica appeared in the doorway holding a toaster. Is this yours or mine? She asked, voice tight but trying for casual. Gary glanced at the toaster, then at her. Pretty sure it's yours. I don't eat bread. Monica blinked. You eat sandwiches. Sandwiches aren't bread, Gary said, deadpan. They're structural food architecture. Monica stared, then let out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. You're impossible. Gary didn't smile. He taped the box shut, the rip of packing tape slicing through the silence. I'll be out by Friday. Monica set the toaster down with a thud. You don't have to rush. Gary straightened, meeting her gaze. I do. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. Can we at least talk while you pack? Gary shrugged. If you want. Monica perched on the arm of the couch, watching him sort through DVDs. Remember when we bought these? You said streaming was a fad. Gary smirked faintly. I was wrong. You were adorable, she said softly. Gary didn't answer. He dropped the DVDs into a box, his movements precise, controlled. Monica's chest ached at the distance, physical and emotional, that stretched between them like a canyon. She tried again. Gary, I know I screwed up. I've been selfish. And I hate that I made you feel invisible. Gary paused, his hands resting on the box. You didn't make me feel invisible, Monica. You made me invisible. Her throat tightened. I'm sorry. He nodded once, not looking at her. I know. The silence settled again, broken only by the sound of tape and cardboard. Monica's mind raced for something, anything, to bridge the gap. Humor, maybe. She glanced at the toaster still sitting on the floor. So, custody battle over the toaster? She said lightly. Gary looked up, one brow arched. You can keep the toaster. I'm taking the coffee maker. Monica gasped in mock horror. That's cruel and unusual punishment. Gary's lips twitched. The closest thing to a smile she'd seen in days. Consider it reparations. For a fleeting moment, the tension cracked, and Monica felt hope flicker. If she could make him smile, maybe she could make him stay. But then Gary turned back to his boxes, and the flicker died. Chapter 7. Monica's grand gesture fails. Monica stood in the middle of her living room, surrounded by chaos. Candles, roses, and enough takeout containers to feed a small army. Her plan had seemed brilliant at 2 a.m. A romantic dinner, heartfelt apology, and maybe a playlist of Gary's favorite songs. Simple, elegant, foolproof. Except nothing about this looked elegant. The candles were mismatched, the roses were shedding petals like they'd given up on life, and the playlist kept skipping to a random techno track she didn't remember downloading. To top it off, the takeout delivery guy had forgotten the garlic bread, which felt like a personal attack. Monica checked her phone for the 10th time. Gary had agreed to stop by to pick up the last of his things. She'd begged for just 10 minutes to talk. 10 minutes to convince him she wasn't the heartless corporate robot she'd apparently become. The doorbell rang. Monica nearly tripped over a candle rushing to answer it. Gary stood there, casual in jeans and a gray sweater, his expression unreadable. He glanced past her into the apartment, brows lifting slightly at the sight of what could only be described as a rom-com crime scene. Wow, he said. Did you join a cult? Monica flushed. It's dinner. For you. For us. Gary stepped inside slowly, taking in the flickering candles, the wilted roses, the playlist currently blasting a bass-heavy beat that sounded like a rave in a submarine. Is this romantic or a seance? Monica scrambled for her phone, stabbing at the screen until the music switched to something softer. Frank Sinatra? Thank God. It's romantic, she said, forcing a smile. I wanted to show you I care. Gary's gaze softened for a fraction of a second, then drifted to the table. Is that 6 different kinds of takeout? Monica winced. I couldn't remember your favorite, so I got options. Gary walked to the table, surveying the spread. Sushi, pizza, Thai noodles, and something that looked suspiciously like barbecue ribs. You know this looks like a buffet at a very confused wedding, right? Monica laughed nervously. I panicked. Gary's lips twitched, the ghost of a smile, but his eyes held that same quiet distance. Monica. She stepped closer, heart pounding. I know I messed up. I've been selfish and distracted, and I hate that I made you feel invisible. I love you, Gary. I do. Gary studied her for a long moment, then sighed. I believe you love me, but love isn't enough if respect isn't there. Monica's throat tightened. I can change. I'll prove it. Gary shook his head gently. You don't need to prove it to me. You need to prove it to yourself. The words landed like a punch, soft, but devastating. Monica felt tears prick her eyes, but before she could speak, the playlist betrayed her again, skipping to the techno track at full volume. Gary glanced at the speaker, then back at her, and for the first time in days he laughed, a deep, genuine laugh that made Monica's heart ache. Nice touch, he said, grabbing his last box from the couch. Really sets the mood. Monica managed a watery smile. I was going for Sinatra. Gary headed for the door, his laughter fading into silence. Good luck, Monica. And then he was gone, leaving her standing in a room full of candles and cold takeout, wondering if grand gestures were just grand failures. Chapter 8. Gary's new chapter. Gary balanced a box labeled kitchen stuff on his hip as he fumbled with the keys to his new apartment. The lock stuck. Of course it did. Because nothing about this move had been smooth. He finally shoved the door open and stepped inside, greeted by the faint smell of fresh paint and the echo of emptiness. It wasn't glamorous. The walls were beige. The carpet had seen better decades, and the view was a parking lot dotted with cars that looked as tired as he felt. But it was his. No tension, no silent judgment, no reminders of what used to be. Just space. Blank, imperfect, and his. He set the box down and surveyed the room. A couch sat in the middle like a lonely island, courtesy of Ethan, who had insisted Gary take it, so you don't spiral into existential dread on the floor. A folding table leaned against the wall, and a single lamp stood like it was auditioning for a sad indie film. Minimalist chic if you squinted hard enough. Gary was halfway through unpacking when a knock rattled the door. He frowned. He hadn't ordered anything. Opening it revealed a woman in neon leggings and a sweatshirt that read Namaste or Nah. She held a plate of cookies like a peace offering. "Hi," she chirped. "I'm Tessa, apartment 3B. You're new." Gary blinked. Yeah. "Welcome to the building." Tessa thrust the plate at him. "These are vegan, gluten-free, and taste like sadness, but it's the thought that counts." Gary accepted the cookies, bemused. "Thanks, I think." Tessa grinned. "We're a friendly bunch here. Well, except Mr. Henderson in 2A. He thinks Wi-Fi is a government conspiracy. But the rest of us? Totally normal." Gary managed to smile. "Good to know. Oh, and Thursday nights? Trivia at O'Malley's. You should come. It's basically the social event of the century for this building." Gary chuckled. "I'll keep that in mind." Tessa gave him a finger gun salute. "Cool. Don't be a stranger." And with that, she bounced down the hall, leaving Gary holding a plate of cookies that looked like they'd been baked during a power outage. He set them on the counter, shaking his head with a faint smile. Maybe this place wasn't so bad. At least it came with characters. Later that night, Gary sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone. Ethan had texted, "How's the new pad? Met any weirdos yet?" Gary smirked and typed back, "Define weird. Does Namaste or Nah count?" Ethan's reply was instant. "Oh, you're gonna have stories. I can feel it." Gary stared at the screen, his smile fading slightly. Stories were good. Distractions were good. But as he glanced at the empty apartment, a pang hit, quiet, sharp, and unwelcome. He missed Monica. Not the Monica from last night, but the Monica who used to curl up next to him on the couch, laughing at bad movies and stealing his fries. He shoved the thought away, focusing on the plate of sad cookies. One bite confirmed Tessa hadn't been exaggerating. They tasted like regret and cardboard. Gary laughed to himself, the sound echoing in the empty room. Maybe this was what starting over felt like. Awkward, bland, and a little bitter. But at least it was his. Chapter 9. Monica's self-reflection. Monica sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop open, a blank document staring back at her like an accusation. She typed the words, "How to win back your boyfriend," into the search bar earlier, then deleted them because even Google couldn't fix what she'd broken. Now she just sat there, surrounded by silence that felt heavier than Gary's absence. Her apartment looked the same. Same throw pillows, same framed photos, but everything felt wrong. The photo of her and Gary at the beach last summer mocked her from the nightstand. His smile was easy, his arms slung around her like she was his whole world. When had she stopped treating him like hers? She thought back to the promotion, the endless meetings, late nights, the pressure to prove herself. She told herself it was temporary, that Gary understood. And he had, at first. He'd cooked dinners, left notes, tried to talk. She'd brushed him off with, "I'm busy," and "we'll make time later." Later never came. Monica closed her eyes, guilt clawing at her chest. She hadn't just neglected him, she'd disrespected him. Introducing him as her roommate wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was a symptom of something deeper. Somewhere along the way, she'd started seeing Gary as safe, permanent, like he'd always be there no matter how little effort she put in. And now he wasn't. Her phone buzzed. "Jenna again. How are you holding up?" Monica typed back, "Like someone ran over my heart with a truck." Jenna replied instantly, "Then stop lying in the road. Get up and do something." Monica stared at the screen, then laughed. A short, bitter sound. "Do something. Sure. But what?" Flowers hadn't worked. Dinner had been a disaster. She needed more than gestures. She needed change. She opened a new tab and typed, "Therapists near me." The list populated instantly. Monica scrolled, her pulse quickening. Therapy wasn't something she'd ever considered. She'd always prided herself on handling things herself. But maybe that was the problem. She'd been so focused on control that she'd lost sight of what mattered. Her finger hovered over the book appointment button. For a moment, doubt whispered, "What if Gary never comes back? What if this is pointless?" Then another voice, Jenna's, sharp and relentless. "Cut through. Do something." Monica clicked. Later that night, she sat on the couch with a notebook, scribbling furiously. Not a plan to win Gary back. At least not yet. A plan to fix herself. To stop being the woman who took love for granted. To become someone worthy of the man she still loved. Halfway through her list, she added a new item. Learn how to make garlic bread. Because honestly, if she was going to fight for Gary, she wasn't losing him over carbs again. Chapter 10. Chance Encounter. Gary wasn't planning to run into Monica. In fact, he'd gone out of his way to avoid places they used to frequent. But fate, or bad luck, had other plans. It was Saturday morning, and Gary had decided to treat himself to a decent cup of coffee instead of the sad drip machine in his apartment. He pushed open the door to Brew and Bean, the cozy cafe with mismatched chairs and chalkboard menus, and immediately regretted it, because Monica was there. She stood at the counter, hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, wearing a soft gray sweater that made her look effortlessly put together. She was laughing at something the barista said, and for a second, Gary felt that old ache, the one that reminded him how much he used to love that sound. He considered turning around, pretending he'd forgotten his wallet, but then Monica turned. Their eyes met, and just like that, escape was impossible. "Gary," she said, her voice a mix of surprise and something else. "Hope? Fear? Both?" "Monica." He nodded, keeping his tone neutral, calm, controlled. She stepped closer, clutching her coffee like a shield. "Hi. Hi." Gary shoved his hands into his jacket pockets, suddenly aware of how awkward this was. The cafe buzzed with chatter, the smell of espresso thick in the air, but all he could hear was the pounding of his own pulse. How have you been?" Monica asked, her voice tentative. "Good," Gary said, settled into the new place. Monica's lips curved into a faint smile. "That's good." Silence stretched between them, taut and uncomfortable. Gary glanced at the chalkboard menu like it held the secrets of the universe. Monica fiddled with her cup, her nails tapping against the cardboard sleeve. Finally, she blurted, "You look good." Gary's brows lifted. "Thanks. I mean, healthy. Not like, miserable." She winced. "Wow, that sounded awful." Gary's mouth twitched, the ghost of a smile. "It's fine." Monica took a breath, her eyes searching his. "Gary, I know this isn't the time or place, but I'm sorry. For everything." Gary studied her, noting the sincerity in her gaze, the way her voice trembled just enough to sound real. "I know," he said quietly. Monica blinked. "That's it." "I know?" Gary shrugged. "What else is there to say?" Her throat tightened. "Maybe that you'll let me explain? That you'll give me a chance to make things right?" Gary hesitated, the weight of 3 years pressing down on him. He told himself he was done, that respect wasn't negotiable. But standing here, looking at her, at the woman who had been his best friend, his partner, his home, he felt something crack. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But curiosity. Maybe even hope. He exhaled slowly. "Coffee's a start." Monica's eyes widened. "Really?" Gary nodded toward an empty table. 10 minutes. Her smile, small, tentative, but real, lit up her face. 10 minutes, she echoed. As they sat down, Gary wondered if this was a mistake. Or maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something new. Chapter 11. The honest talk. The coffee shop had emptied out, leaving only the hum of the espresso machine and the faint scent of cinnamon in the air. Gary sat across from Monica, his hands wrapped around his cup like it was an anchor. 10 minutes had stretched into 20, and neither of them had moved to leave. Monica leaned forward, her voice low but steady. "Gary, I need you to hear me. I didn't call you my roommate because I don't love you. I called you that because I was stupid and insecure." Gary raised an eyebrow. "Insecure?" "Yes." Monica's cheeks flushed. "I wanted to look independent, like I wasn't leaning on anyone, like I was the strong, unstoppable manager who had it all together. And in doing that, I erased you." Gary's jaw tightened. "You didn't erase me, Monica. You erased us. 3 years. And you made me sound like a guy who splits rent and steals the last slice of pizza." Monica winced. "I know. And I hate myself for it." Gary studied her, his expression calm but unyielding. "Do you know what that felt like? Standing there while you laughed with your coworkers, pretending I didn't matter." Her throat tightened. "Like hell," she whispered. "Exactly." Gary set his cup down, his voice firm. "Respect isn't optional. It's the foundation. Without it, love is just words." Monica nodded, tears brimming. "You're right. I lost sight of that. I thought love was enough, but it's not if I don't show it." Gary leaned back, his gaze steady. "So what now? You want me to just forget it happened?" "No." Monica shook her head fiercely. "I don't want you to forget. I want you to see that I've changed. That I'm changing." Gary's brows lifted. "Changed how?" Monica hesitated, then pulled out her phone, scrolling until she found the screenshot. She slid it across the table. "Therapy appointment. Tomorrow." Gary blinked, surprised. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." Monica's voice trembled, but her eyes were clear. "I've been so wrapped up in proving myself at work that I forgot the person who mattered most. I don't want to be that woman anymore." Gary stared at the screen, then at her. For the first time in weeks, something shifted inside him. Not forgiveness, Not yet, but a crack in the wall he'd built. That's a start. Monica exhaled, relief flooding her face. So, does that mean you'll give me a chance? Gary's lips curved into a faint smile. Wry, cautious. It means I'll finish my coffee. Monica laughed softly, wiping at her eyes. I'll take it. Gary chuckled, shaking his head. You're relentless. I'm in love, she said simply. And I'm not giving up. Gary looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then prove it. Monica's smile widened, tentative but real. Challenge accepted. Chapter 12. Rebuilding or goodbye? Gary stood outside Brew and Bean 2 weeks later, staring at the glass door like it held the answer to a question he wasn't sure he wanted to ask. Inside, Monica sat at a corner table, a notebook open, pen in hand. She looked different, not in the obvious ways but in the quiet ones. Her posture was less rigid, her expression softer, like someone who'd stopped sprinting and finally learned to breathe. He pushed the door open, the bell chiming overhead. Monica looked up, and her smile, tentative, hopeful, hit him like a punch and a hug at the same time. Hey, she said, voice steady but warm. Hey. Gary slid into the chair across from her, setting his coffee down. You're early. I didn't want to risk being late, she said, then added with a wry grin. Figured I've done enough damage. Gary chuckled softly. Fair point. For a moment, silence stretched between them, filled with the hum of espresso machines and the clink of mugs. Then Monica pushed the notebook toward him. I've been making lists. Gary raised an eyebrow. Lists? Things I need to change. Things I've learned. She tapped the page, where neat bullet points lined the paper. Respect isn't optional. Love is action, not assumption. Garlic bread is sacred. Gary stared at the last one, then laughed, a real, deep laugh that startled them both. Garlic bread. Monica grinned sheepishly. I figured if I'm gonna fight for you, I should start with carbs. Gary shook his head, still smiling. You're ridiculous. I'm trying, she said softly. Not with grand gestures. Not with takeout buffets and candles. Just with me. With being better. Gary studied her, noting the sincerity in her eyes, the way her voice didn't wobble like before. Therapy helping? Monica nodded. A lot. Turns out, I've been chasing validation at work so hard I forgot the person who gave it freely. I don't want to be that woman anymore. Gary leaned back, his fingers drumming lightly on the table. I don't need perfection, Monica. I just need respect. Consistency. I know, she said, and I can give you that, if you'll let me. Gary hesitated, the weight of 3 years pressing down on him. He told himself he was done, that walking away was the only option. But here she was, owning her mistakes, doing the work, not just saying the words. And damn it, he still loved her. That hadn't changed. Finally, he exhaled. Okay. Monica blinked. Okay. Okay, Gary repeated, a faint smile tugging at his lips. One step at a time. No grand gestures. No techno playlists. Monica laughed, relief flooding her face. Deal. Gary grinned. And garlic bread. Non-negotiable. Done, she said, her smile wide and real. I'll even learn to make it from scratch. Gary raised his coffee in a mock toast. To garlic bread and second chances. Monica clinked her cup against his, her heart soaring. For the first time in weeks, hope didn't feel like a fantasy. It felt like a plan. Chapter 13. Garlic bread and second chances. Gary stood in the doorway of Monica's apartment, the smell of roasted garlic wafting out like a peace treaty. He raised an eyebrow. You weren't kidding. Monica grinned, flour dusting her cheek like war paint. Homemade garlic bread. No takeout buffets. No techno playlists. Gary stepped inside, surveying the scene. A modest table set for 2, candles that matched this time, and a playlist humming soft jazz in the background. It wasn't grand. It wasn't flashy. It was right. You've been busy, he said, shrugging off his jacket. I've been learning, Monica replied, her voice steady but warm. About bread. About boundaries. About not being a complete idiot. Gary chuckled, sinking into a chair. Progress. Monica placed the basket of garlic bread on the table with a flourish. The cornerstone of reconciliation. Gary picked up a slice, inhaling the buttery, garlicky perfection. If this is a bribe, it's working. Monica laughed, relief flickering in her eyes. It's not a bribe. It's a promise. No more neglect. No more disrespect. Just us. Real us. Gary chewed thoughtfully, then nodded. You've changed. I'm trying, she said softly. Not for you, well, okay, partly for you, but mostly for me, because I hated who I was becoming. Gary studied her for a long moment, then smiled. The kind of smile that reached his eyes, the one Monica had missed more than anything. Then let's try again. Monica's breath caught. Really? Really? Gary said, raising his glass of water in a mock toast. To garlic bread and second chances. Monica clinked her glass against his, her heart soaring. And no more techno. Gary grinned. Non-negotiable. Later, as they curled up on the couch, Monica stealing the last piece of garlic bread and Gary pretending not to notice, she whispered. You know, I signed us up for trivia night. Gary groaned. With your competitive streak? That's a terrible idea. Monica smirked. You love terrible ideas. Gary laughed, pulling her closer. Yeah, I guess I do. And just like that, the cracks began to mend. Not with grand gestures or perfect plans, but with laughter, carbs, and the quiet certainty that love, when paired with respect, could survive even the worst playlist.